Hello, friends. It's Raquel from Infinite Succulent here with your full moon forecast for the upcoming Gemini full moon on November 27th around 1:17 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So, if you have been feeling this desire to really just find your inner peace, to calm the spiraling thoughts, to kind of put aside all the things on the exterior in order to find some inner peace, congratulations. You are definitely feeling the energies of this upcoming full moon in Gemini. Now, of course, the word peace has quite a heavier connotation to it right now with the state of the world, with the war that's going on right now, with Israel Hamas, with the movement for free Palestine, and just all the stuff around that. Peace is definitely an energy that is all around us, yet feels so far away at the same time. And I think one thing we've all been noticing is as the world feels less peaceful, our inner landscape feels a lot less peaceful as well. And, honestly, that shouldn't be surprising because any of us who, sorry, excuse me, any of us who are in spiritual learnings and spiritual teachings, we understand that as without, so within. Whatever's going on the outside is also happening on the inside, and whatever is happening on the inside is also happening on the outside. And this is extremely important. The moon wants us to recognize this because the theme that I identified for the Gemini full moon is inner peace for outer peace. And it's really this recognition that if we're looking for outer peace in the world, we need to start with ourselves. We need to start within and figure out what are the barriers to peace that exist within me. Because until I begin to understand that and clear that out, how can I expect to be a voice that also helps clear out the barriers to peace in the outside world where so little is actually in my control? So that's a big theme that this Gemini full moon has for us, finding our inner peace, recognizing, illuminating, because when we're talking about full moons, we're always talking about an illumination and a release, a letting go. So, illuminating what are those things that are a barrier to peace within me, and then letting go of those barriers, whatever they might be, as much as we possibly can. So let's just talk a little bit about Gemini, Gemini energy, and some of the energies that are coming forward with this full moon that's coming on the 27th. So Gemini is a mutable or adaptable air sign. Air is representative of our mindsets, our thoughts, the brain, and really our thinking. And of course, our thinking has a large influence then on our actions and also how we feel in a lot of ways too. With this Gemini full moon in particular, one of the things I've been picking up on is a lot of kind of like obsessive, repetitive, spiraling thoughts. I've actually been feeling this leading up to this full moon for a while, and I've noticed in my clients and my friends, there's been a very similar thing where we find that our brain gets hold of something and like a dog with a bone, it just like won't let go of it, even though we're like breathing through it, even though we're meditating, even though we're going for walks, even though we're trying to be like, okay, brain, like let that go, let that go. It just won't. And that's a bit of Gemini energy. Gemini can get kind of obsessed with things, kind of grab onto it and not let go. And so there is a little bit of that energy that's happening with this Gemini full moon, which is why it's really important that we learn to shift things, especially in terms of like content we're taking in, because that can really increase the obsessiveness of our thoughts. So being very mindful about the content we're consuming, whether that is actually feeding that kind of obsession or whether it's creating a little bit more spaciousness in our brain and in our thought process as well. So Gemini, adaptable air sign, which means that Gemini, in its light aspect, is actually quite open minded, is extremely curious. In its light aspect, Gemini is communicative, collaborative, really likes to kind of have a more objective view so it can take in all different kinds of opinions because Gemini likes that. But on the shadow side, because everything has a light and a shadow side. On the shadow side, Gemini energy can actually be quite the polar opposite to that, which is completely closed-minded, all or nothing, us versus them thinking, and completely denying that anyone else could have another opinion that could be as valid as their own. Now, Gemini is actually represented by the twins. And when we think about what twins, what the twins represent, it's actually duality. And, astrology and spirituality repeats to us often the lesson of balance and the lesson of, the light and the shadow. And Gemini repeats that as well. So with the twins, it's very much represented by the two voices inside of our own minds. The voice that is kind of like our inner cheerleader, the voice that's like, you got this, you can do this, that kind of like more higher perspective voice, as well as that voice that's the inner critic, the voice that's always telling us, ooh, no, that's not safe. You can't do that. You're not good enough for that. Gemini really represents both of those voices. And the truth is that both of those voices exist within each of us. And we like to think of one as being better than the other. We definitely can think about one being more beneficial or feel more beneficial in our life than the other. But the truth is that both of them have purpose, and we're here to integrate both of those voices and recognize they're both us, and they both have lessons for us to learn. So, one of the things that's really interesting about this Gemini full moon is that it's really giving us this opportunity to kind of take a look at ourselves and look at the way that we're really kind of sabotaging our own inner peace through our thought process, through our subjectivity versus objectivity, with just the way that we won't allow others' perceptions to come in. And this is also a theme that's coming up with both the sun and Mars being in Sagittarius during the full moon in Gemini. So Sagittarius is really adventure oriented. Sagittarius loves to learn new things. Sagittarius on the light side is kind of similar to Gemini in that it can be very open-minded, very like loving to learn, loving to experience new things, loving to experience new people. But on the shadow side, Sagittarius, kind of like Gemini, can also become very like stuck in their own way of thinking and domineering. That's the word I'm looking for. Very domineering in their thought process and really deciding that like what I think matters more than anyone else thinks, and I don't even have to listen to anyone else. Now, Sagittarius is a mutable fire sign, so we're feeling a little fired up with Sagittarius being the sun sign, but we also have Mars right next to like, oh, sorry, hold on. Okay, sorry, my brain got a little discombobulated, which is also very Gemini full moon. But we have both the sun and Mars next to each other. Well, not quite next to each other, but appearing next to each other in the sign of Sagittarius, which kind of fires us up and inflames our passion. Mars is representative of kind of the masculine, the action oriented. It's also the planet of war. It's been very activated over the last few months, which I don't think is a surprise to any of us. But with the sun and Mars in Sagittarius during this Gemini full moon, it kind of creates this energy within the collective where people really want to express their truth and their values, but they're doing it in a kind of inflamed, aggressive way. And they're not realizing by doing it in that way, they're actually turning their values into dogma. Values are things that are really personal to ourselves, and it's how we want to live our life. It's how we want to prioritize things in our life. But when we start to take our values and put it on other people and say, this is the way you have to live now, this is all the things that you have to live because I think this is what's best, it turns it into dogma, which means it doesn't allow for other opinions, other perspectives, other people's values to exist. So we can feel that in the collective right now. We can feel that in the way that people are polarizing themselves when it comes to issues around, especially around the war, who to support, who to not. Like it's becoming this thing. It feels almost like a little bit like a sports team, which makes me so sad to think about it that way. But like where we're on these teams and these sides, and we have to decide this is good, this is bad, and everyone else is wrong. And I don't think that's actually helping the situation, nor do I feel like it's a pathway toward peace, both on the external level or within us as well. Now, the Gemini full moon actually has the potential to be a really beautiful cooling, kind of calming energy for this Sagittarius Mars, Sun and Mars and Sagittarius inflamed energy. The full moon in Gemini can actually illuminate that pattern for us, see how we're kind of inflamed in the way we're sharing, and help us kind of cool it down a little bit, help us come back to more objectivity, help us come back to a little bit more open-mindedness, help us come back to a sense of being able to not only be connected with our own values, but leave space and room for other people's values as well. But that's if we choose to allow it to do so. The Gemini full moon can also completely take us in the other direction and have us really kind of like double down on our polarity thinking, on our us versus them thinking, on this idea that my side is the only side that's right and this side has got to be wrong. It can really do that too. So how do we work with the energies of this Gemini full moon to keep us in that more open, peaceful aspect as opposed to staying in that more constricted, fighting, like resistant aspect? One of the best things we can do to work with these energies of the Gemini full moon is actually to quiet down, to talk a whole lot less and listen a whole lot more. And one of the things that I've been picking up on for this Gemini full moon in particular is to actually invite in perspectives, opinions, views that don't meet your already held personal beliefs and biases. It's actually challenging. It's a beautiful way to challenge yourself to understand someone else's perspective. So if you're always consuming media here, if you're always consuming these voices, if you're always getting information that just completely confirms everything you already believe, this Gemini full moon is inviting you to welcome in some other voices, some new perceptions, some new perspectives, and not so that you change your mind, but just so that you open your mind, so that you can recognize where in your own mind are you not allowing, first of all, your own inner peace, but where also are you denying other people their peace as well. It's really important for us to note that if we want peace in the outside world, it all starts first and foremost with ourselves. So this Gemini full moon wants us to understand, how can we find that inner peace? How can we find inner peace in our own thought processes? How can we then bring that out into the world? How can we provide opportunities for other people to feel that same peace we feel? How can we take our experiences, take our beliefs, and also be open to hear other people's? This is a really, really big theme for this Gemini full moon. So ways to work with it. First of all, note where you're having very obsessive, spirally energies. Note where and how these energies are keeping you from feeling peaceful inside, from being able to feel into a sense of centeredness, a sense of groundedness to earth, a sense of belonging to yourself, right? Like really feel into how the thought processes are keeping that away from you. And then also take note of what are some of the external things that might be feeding that internal sense of chaos, for lack of a better word. And because full moons are about letting things go, this is a really beautiful opportunity to release some of those things that we know are creating a lot of chaos. So for example, one of the things I've been doing is I've actually been off TikTok for almost a week now. I was noticing that I was getting really compulsive in my use of it. I was noticing that I would stay on it, even though it was making me feel terrible, even though I was seeing information and videos that I knew were propaganda from both sides, because I tend to gravitate toward information from both sides. So my algorithm looks like that. But I was just really seeing information that was making me feel really chaotic and very unpeaceful inside, coming from everywhere. Coming from everywhere. And I noticed that in my own brain, I was constantly kind of spiraling. I was having obsessive thought. It was leaking my energy, and I realized it was really taking me away from my own core values. I was confused. I wasn't in my own beliefs anymore. So I was like, this really isn't working for me. So I've made a very intentional move to stay off the app for a little bit, because it's really important for me to have my inner peace to do the work that I can do and stay in my core values. So that's one thing. And that's very much for me inspired by this Gemini full moon. And I'll probably continue to stay off until I feel more compelled to be on there, either creating content or where I feel like the information is actually providing me with something that's beneficial and not just making me feel like I'm falling into the hands of propaganda on all sides. So there's one example of things that you can do. So to, take note of where you're feeling these obsessive, polarizing energies, take note of what are some things that are feeding that obsessive, polarized energies, and perhaps let them go. And then also, as I mentioned before, open yourself up to some new perspectives. Listen to some podcasts, read some books that go against what you currently believe. And what I mean by that is, like, don't look for people who are irrationally sharing things you don't believe. Look for voices that are rational, voices that are grounded in truth and history, right? Like, use your critical thinking skills and use your media literacy to find voices that are grounded in reality, but that provide you perspectives that maybe are new to you. Because this is how we're actually going to build peace on the outer levels too. Coalition building, bringing diverse groups of opinions and beliefs together for some kind of common goal. And if we're not willing to do that within ourselves, how can we expect the world to do that at large? So if you want some more information about this Gemini full moon, if you're looking for some journal prompts, or if you want a little bit more information about the astrology, because also Mercury is also very activated with this full moon. So it might feel a little bit like a Mercury retrograde. Be very, very conscious of your communication styles. In fact, take it real slow. Like, Gemini can actually make us want to be really quick with our communication. It can get us a little reactive with our communication. So during this full moon, like, this is a great time to take a breath and a beat in between when someone says something to you and you react. We actually want to move away from the reaction more into the responding. So with our communication, instead of just immediately like letting out whatever wants to come out, like taking a breath, centering it, being very conscious and intentional with our communication. And this also has to do with written communication, emails, things like that. Read things over, double check. It does have a bit of a Mercury retrograde feel to it. So be aware of your communication styles. So anyway, if you want more information about all of this, head over to the Moon blog, linked below. We've got journal prompts. We've got a little bit of an astrological forecast there too. But I do hope that with this Gemini full moon, you have the opportunity to see and release anything within you that is a barrier to your peace. I hope you have a really beautiful full moon. Oh, and also, if you're local to San Diego and you're looking to come together in community to process, to breathe, to just be present with others for this Gemini full moon, I want to let you know that I am hosting a live moon circle. It's a collaborative event with Locally Well and the Beverage Botanist. This will be on Sunday, November 26th, yes, from 4 to 7 p.m. I will put the link below, and I hope you guys can join us for this beautiful live moon circle. I will also be leading everyone in creating their own magical releasing botanical candles. So that's something we'll be making and taking at this full moon circle as well. So if you want to join, please check out the link below. And of course, if you like this content, please like, comment, subscribe, and save. Please share it with any friends who you think would enjoy this as well. And thank you all so much for being here. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks for the new moon forecast. Bye, friends.